Hey, daytime. I'm actually starting to realize that as intrusive as that vine is, it's kind of pretty. It does have to go at some point, but it is kind of pretty. Um, but anyway, I wanted to dig into style genre today, kind of break away from the whole world and plot genre. And I'm going to have to excuse some background sound. First of all, the cats are going crazy. I think, bless you. I think they're just nuts. They are playing very, very loudly. And second of all, I'm eating crackers because I've just been very, very ill. Well, I've been ill and whined about it. And I need to keep my energy up, especially when doing something like this. And also now Nico is walking all over my stomach because he smells the biscuits or the crackers. I'm not being racist. I have actual crackers. No, that is not for you. No, that is not for you. Stop. No, this is mine. This is mine. Boo, boo, boo. Mm. What a mongo. Mm. Sorry. I just had to fight for my food. Mm. You're trying to kiss me or you're trying to get the food out of my mouth, you nuthole. Mm. Yeah, a bit of an intermission, sorry. But yeah, style genre. Um, Style is something you add to what you have. A lot of creatives seem to think that style is the beginning and end of what you do, and I guess there's an audience for it. Maybe there's even a big audience for it, but I don't know if it's an opinion or just how things work. But at least as I understand the world, style is something you add to world and plot genre. If the world genre is the when and where, and the plot genre is what and why is being done, then the style genre is how. And a lot of that does depend actually on both. Ow! Just step on me, will you? Huh? On both the world genre and the plot genre that are being used, because some worlds are built around a style, um, and some plots are very much, if not built around, then naturally fit for a certain kind of style. But the style is the how. And a lot of style gets boiled down to a tone that goes from the very, very dark to the very, very light. On the very, I will probably make independent videos for at least some of these style genres. But I want the overall concept of it to be given some attention first. Um, on the extreme dark end of the scale, you probably find grimdark, which is, I think it was actually coined for the science fiction world called Warhammer 40k, which is in the year 40,000 or something like that, and where everything is war, everything is death, everything is violence, and everything is really, really dark. Grimdark is a style where life really doesn't matter. Um, there are There are no inhibitions to nearly anything. It's just violence and brutality and hopelessness and meaninglessness, and somehow you build stories in that, and you can do very good stories in that. You can even have characters that question all this hopelessness, although many will not, because if many did, then something might actually end up changing. But it is very very grim and very very dark, hence the name. And life is short, brutish, and not comfortable, and everything is very hopeless and meaningless. If you move a bit away from that, a bit away from that dark extreme, a chair is giving its life over there to a cat with claws. If you move a bit away from that extreme, you actually you can kind of split the grimdark tone in two, and one of them is what I would call fictional nihilism or something like that. Uh, Basically, to separate it from the philosophy of nihilism, but it's nihilism in fictional use. It is the hopelessness and the bleakness. Sorry, the hopelessness and bleakness of an uncaring world that is beyond your control and doesn't care about you. And it tends to thrive in cosmic horror stories where the universe is just so. Those are not your crackers. Um, Nico wants the crackers. He is not getting them. Um, where things are just so big and the universe so vast and uncaring that it kind of breaks the mind with ancient gods that barely even notice humanity as a whole. What it doesn't have is the excessive violence and brutality that often comes with the meaninglessness of grimdark. But it does explore the hopelessness and meaninglessness um, to a great extent. At least a lot of stories do. The violence, you can have that without well, not without the nihilism entirely, but without the more philosophical angle, without the gloomy angle. Um, and the best term I've heard for this is probably splatterpunk, which is just violence for the sake of violence, excessive, all consuming, often darkly creative. And, well, I think the word excessive is probably the best description of it. It's just gunning down scores of people, be they innocent or not, because whatever, you got to do something. It's speeding through a school crosswalk because you need to get somewhere fast, and it's blood everywhere. It's mayhem, it's destruction, but it's all portrayed as, I hate to use the term, but it's all portrayed as hilarious. It is so over the top and gory that the entire. Oh, what? You stop it! They are completely out of control these days. It is so over the top that it just becomes, I guess, unrealistic in a way. It just becomes a parody of itself, and in fact, a parody of excessive violence is probably a pretty good description of splatterpunk in many ways, but it can still be very story driven. It's just the style. It's a style. It's how things are done. Instead of carefully breaking into a place and not alerting the guards outside, it's blowing up the door, gunning down the guards, torching the entire compound, and probably just for a good measure, triggering an atomic explosion in the distance, just to because you couldn't find the light switch. It's often that kind of insane. Um, Going up a bit lighter without going actually light yet. We're not across the middle yet. But going a bit lighter, you find one of the classics, noir, which is basically a calmer, more grounded approach to all the horrors of grimdark. Yes, the world is full of meaningless violence. Yes, it all seems hopeless most of the time. But let's just keep our wits about us, shall we? Society is a facade, but that facade still serves a role. Noir is about all the hopelessness and all the violence and all that of the real world, more or less. It's not as excessive, but it is about accepting that all of the horrible things and all of the morally dubious things are just a part of life, and being either professional about it or being quote unquote an adult about it, not trying to change anything, not getting hysterical about death and mayhem. And these stories often take the perspective of people that are confronted with these horrible things on a daily basis. People like police and detectives, especially. Detective noir is practically a proud tradition of a story type at this point. But it's not excessive violence. It's not excessive gloom and doom. But it is an acceptance that these things exist, and you have to live alongside of them, and dealing with that, often by having a stiff drink and just trying to forget about the horrible things you just saw. So that moves us a bit closer to the middle. And a bit closer than noir is probably what I have only heard referred to as gritty, or sometimes just grit. And these stories, this kind of style, takes a lot of the noir stuff and basically accepts that there is something wrong with the world. But grit sometimes has more of a darkly positive outlook, the idea that there's actually something that you can win. You can somehow make things better either for you or those around you, perhaps even for the world in general. But it's not going to be easy. Uh, Gritty style accepts that things are tough. Bad things happen to you and to others, to innocents as well as guilty. And things are not all rosy. Wounds get infected, people die from stupid things, people do stupid things, sad things exist, um, and nothing is going to be solved by just saying a few words and smiling to another person. Everything is really, really hard. Sometimes gritty is also portrayed as realistic in that it accepts that there are no easy solutions. If you want something to happen, you have to work for it and you have to work hard for it. And you have to accept that you may fail. In fact, you're more likely to fail than to succeed. And a lot of gritty stories are actually not hampered by this. They thrive on it because the draw of uh, gritty stories tends to be that there are really big challenges to overcome. And the success of overcoming even one of these challenges outweighs how dark everything else is. Those are not your crackers! Get away from my crackers, you crackhead! You crackerhead! You're a crackerhead, Nico! A crackerhead! Yeah, he's. Let's see if I can get him on screen. There he is, the beast himself. The beast! I don't know how well it filmed it. He's standing on my chest, and he's heavy. And I'm still not entirely over the illness. Now he's pushing his butt into my face. Thank you. Huh, that's better. Butts away. Okay. Back to the style genres after this little interlude. At this point, we are getting to the middle um, of it all. And I don't even really know the word to quite describe the middle. That's often the problem when things are perfectly balanced, as all things should be. There's no word for it because we tend to describe the extremes, not the lack of extremes. I've heard it referred to as realistic, but I don't really like using that term. Um, so maybe we can call it moderate. This is the style where there basically is no style. Uh, Things happen, bad things happen, good things happen. There is some justice in the world, but it's not always a given. And solutions take work, but hard work can pay off. It's a very casual, that might be the wrong word, but it's a very casual approach to style. There are very few extremes of everything. If there is an extreme of anything, it is portrayed as an extreme. If someone in a fit of rage kills someone in a brutal manner, it is made perfectly clear that this is considered excessive and brutal, and people are horrified by it. People are not numbed as they typically are in darker styles, in darker styles. But still, there is a good deal of realism to it. Things break, things go wrong. People cannot always be trusted. But the assumption is that really bad things, just like really good things, are out of the ordinary. There is a kind of average. There's a kind of a golden mean to it all, and anything that is extreme in any way stands out as extreme. Some would call this bland, but I do not agree. you can explore this to a lot of extents, and even if fights lead to some injuries, and are not as glamorous as you might think they are, and your goals may seem a bit pathetic, but at least they are obtainable. If if you really try, if you really want to, you can make this perfectly exciting. It's just not extreme. The excitement has to come from what's going on, not from making it extreme. Um, then we move on to the slightly lighter side of it. And here there are very few, I know very few actual terms for genres, actual definitions of genres. The lighter side is more about the tools used uh, to describe things, the style tools used. But sometimes they're used so much that they actually kind of define a style. And the first that springs to mind is something called bathos. This is, I think it's actually a word. I've never really looked up the etymology of it, but to me, it was always kind of a play on the word pathos, or pathos, or how you want to express it. Pathos being these overly dramatic expressions of thoughts, these almost Shakespearean soliloquies of your romantic feelings, or your feeling of betrayal, or your sudden stroke of brilliance, or something like that. Pathos is when you have very um, surface dramatic moments that are undercut by lightheartedness. And if there was ever um, a franchise that utterly dwelled on that style, it's the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I think the point where it really crystallized for me, and where I truly understood what pathos was in the movie Doctor Strange, when there is a very dramatic moment and the main character um, is shedding a tear, and his magical cape reaches out and wipes the tear away, and he just brushes it away like it's an annoyance. And it's lighthearted. It's kind of humorous. It's not slapstick comedy. It's not some great joke, but it's just drama and tension undercut by a lighthearted moment. And that is basically a genre unto itself. Um, these great big fights, these big objectives, these big events, all taken a bit lighthearted. Um, you get injured, but it's something that can be handled. You lose a fight, but it's not the end of the world. If it ever is the end of the world, then that's a really big thing, and there's usually someone who's going to be quippy about it. It's lighthearted. It's light. Stop trying to eat the crackers, silly cat. It's lighthearted without being a flat out comedy. It's a very positive. I won't say rose tinted, but it's a very positive outlook on negative things. Heroes tend to win, um, even if there are costs that are paid along the way, prices paid along the way. Good tends to prevail. Um, Things tend to not be too complicated. Um, Details tend to be there for flavor and color, not for challenge. Um, if things break down, there's usually a reason for it. Things don't just backfire because of some technicality. It's not comic book, ironically, since Marvel Cinematic Universe is so good at it. It's not comic book realism, but it is more a more light-hearted, simplified world version of the world, and it is very much designed for giving a positive experience without having to do away with great drama. You can have big emotions, you can have big events, you can have big threats, but usually things work out kind of well. And if something permanently bad happens, then it's a really, really big deal. Things do not break just because of stupid reasons. People do not betray each other over banalities. Equipment doesn't break down because you forgot to clean the dust out of your gun holster. Things have a meaning, and there is usually a net positive outcome. Now, moving on from that, um, we have what I would. Oh, oi, oi, he went down. I was getting too boring for him, I guess. But we have what I would call the more silly genre, or silly genres actually, because the thing about silly genres, again, it's on the lighter side of the scale. It's not so much about genre as it is about the tools being used, and silliness can be used in so many ways. I'm not talking about slapstick here. I'm not talking about cartoonish craziness. I'm just talking about very lighthearted, very low consequence fun. This is comparable to um, most modern sitcoms, or near modern sitcoms. Well, what I consider modern sitcoms is maybe not as modern to many others, but anything from Friends to Scrubs to, heck, Roseanne, for just to mention a classic. Um, Silly things happen. People who get hurt usually don't get hurt badly, and it's usually something that can be handled with a bit of rest. Uh, and good lessons learned, I guess. But the point of it is to have a lot of the things from the more dark and dramatic genres, but have them in a harmless, lighthearted way. Saturday morning cartoons at one point started to try their hand at this, and I remember a lot of things like GI Joe, for example, um, being about really serious things, really serious matters, but it always felt harmless. People didn't get killed, people got injured, um, places didn't get annihilated, they got damaged and had to be rebuilt. Consequences were temporary, and suffering was for dramatic effect. what was in focus in this silliness was the fun stuff, fun powers used in fun ways, uh, fun personalities acting out in humorous ways, and some of them took it to extremes, and sometimes it got a bit experimental with what I have to call darkly humorous, because in theory it is dark. It's very dark, but it is played for laughs. It is silly. Um, the best example I know of this is an old role playing game called Paranoia, which is a sci fi. The world genre is sci fi, and it's set in a world after some big war, but it's set in a huge bunker complex, an underground complex, where an artificially intelligent computer is keeping humanity alive and quote unquote safe from the horrors outside. And do not question what horrors are outside, because who knows? There was a storyline about it, but I'm not going to get into that. Because you were a citizen of the complex, Alpha Complex as it was called, and the computer was your friend, and everything was good and fine and nice, and you were happy because people are happy. If you're not happy, you're a troublemaker and probably a traitor, and you will get executed. But you live in a family of six identical clones, so if one of you gets lost, there are still the other fives. Um, and it has had a lot of this dark stuff. It had rebellious mutant. Everybody has some kind of mutation, and they're all illegal. So if you're found out, you're executed. Everybody belonged to secret societies, and it was illegal. And if you anybody found out, you were executed. And everybody constantly betrayed each other and got each other executed for brownie points to just impress the computer or their superiors. And nothing works. Everything is broken down. There are perfectly normal robots running around that are so broken that they are life threatening. That small robot cleaning the hallway, it can probably explode and tear your limbs off because of a design fault. And most new things are poorly built by people who don't know what they're doing, and it's tested on the workers who are just given assignments to run around with it and try to use it. And then you count the body parts when they come back. And this is all really, really dark, but it's silly. It's entirely silly and humorous, and you never felt that it was really dark because it's played for laughs, and that makes it ironically a light style, because not only it's not even just this, oh, everything is going to be all right, people are just injured and they'll get over it, places can be rebuilt, everything is going to be okay, we're just here to fight the good fight. It's not even that. Things are insane, but you know, smile bec- because happiness is mandatory. um, and it's really hard to explain quickly, but it's about having things being insane and yet very lighthearted. And from then on, things get things get progressively sillier. There is humorous genres, humorous styles um, that are this kind of silliness applied to a lot of other things. Um, maybe in fact these are, I should have taken them before, the darkly humorous or darkly silly.
interesting. But now we're here, um, where problems are just the craziness and the chaos of everything is exaggerated to a point where it starts to become unrealistic. Yeah, sure, you could have all these problems, but who does? Um, who has to juggle 16 different things just to make their day work, and who has inept secret agents following them around, being clearly incompetent and trying to do something that makes no sense. Who lives in a place where everything they use, every car, every device, every person they come in contact with, everything just keeps going wrong in the dumbest ways possible, without it having any real consequences. This is, I'm not going to go into what humor is, but humorous styles often lean less into actual jokes and more into the idea that no matter what happens, the consequences are minor and temporary. And it gives a kind of breather from real life in that you can experience all matters of weird things and bad things, things that frustrate you in life, but here they don't really mean that much. They're just window decorations. And from there on, you start getting into kind of cartoonish territory where everything is overblown, but none of it really matters all that much. You can have people blown up and just get up with unintentional blackface and scorched clothes, or no clothes if you're really going for silly. Um, Gratuitous nudity is often a part of really silly genres, and the focus is on things that work in ways that are clearly designed to be silly. Um, Magic that is based on fart noises and limericks. Technology that works on the premise of just hitting it as hard as possible and hoping that it does the right thing. All the little silly, stupid things that you could imagine become the basis of reality. You don't solve things by being smart, you solve things by doing something completely silly and possibly over the top. And then we get into the four color comic book style silliness, where heroes can take a hail of bullets and just go punch the villain in the face, where cars basically fly down the street, and where it's all about your role in the plot more than any kind of realism, where heroes win because they're heroes, not because they make the right choices or are more competent in any way. Um, and often villains are laughably exaggerated and blatantly incompetent or naive even. And, and the excitement comes from knowing that everything is going to end well no matter what, and just seeing things go the way that you want, possibly with some one liners and jokes thrown in here and there. And beyond that, it's just slapstick. Um, Slapstick, ironically, is very hard to do because it's very hard to have a story truly carry the idea of a lot of crazy, meaningless things happening in funny ways, which is why I don't feel qualified to describing how to do slapstick fiction. But that's probably for the better because I just noticed that it's past 40 minutes now. So this was basically a rundown of the core of style genres, which is just this going from the dark to the light types of style genres of styles. But this is not all, and I'll go into that in later videos. Now I think I need to stop this and get it uploaded while it's still a file size I can handle.